My dearest Resident Evil Code Veronica, as I sit here, my heart races with the same intensity as a zombie lunging for its next meal. From the very moment we first crossed paths, I knew that you were unlike any other. Your dark and twisted world, filled with nightmarish creatures and chilling secrets, drew me in like a moth to a flame. There's something undeniably alluring about the way you challenge me, test my wits, and make my heart pound in my chest. Your atmosphere is intoxicating, a blend of tension and fear that keeps me on the edge of my seat. The way you immerse me in your nightmarish narrative as I navigate the harrowing adventures of Claire Redfield and Chris Redfield is an experience like no other. Your puzzles, your monsters, your haunting locales, they all combine to create a symphony of terror that I can't help but be captivated by. I was just a child when we first met. In you, I found an unparalleled blend of challenge and reward, fear and bravery, mystery and revelation. You have taught me patience, resilience, and the exhilarating joy of overcoming obstacles. Through you, I have experienced emotions that few other games have evoked. You have become an indelible part of my gaming journey. You've not only offered entertainment, but a thrilling, heart-pounding adventure that has left an imprint on my soul. Thank you for being the vessel of so many cherished memories, and for bringing me endless hours of joy. This, my dear Resident Evil Code Veronica, is my love letter to you. Yours eternally, the Red Butterfly. Before I start explaining why I think this game deserves more attention than it has received so far, allow me to tell you about the context in which it was developed. Resident Evil Code Veronica, or Biohazard Code Veronica in Japan, is a survival horror game that was originally released in 2000. Instead of being developed by Capcom, the game was outsourced and created by Nextech and Toes as a replacement for a Saturn port of Resident Evil 2, which Capcom and Nextech believed would be subpar. Originally intended as a Dreamcast exclusive title, Sega's departure from the console industry led to a modified port of the game being released for the GameCube and PlayStation 2 the following year, titled Resident Evil Code Veronica X. It is the first Resident Evil game released for a 6th generation console, and features full polygonal environments instead of the static, pre-rendered backgrounds that were characteristic of the previous installments. This allowed for more dynamic camera angles and improved immersion. The game also featured enhanced visuals and realistic lighting effects, showcasing the power of this new generation of consoles. Despite being a continuation of Resident Evil 2's story, the absence of the number 3 in the title was not lost on audiences and game fans. The reason for going with a subtitle rather than another numbered title, essentially, came down to console war politics. The idea was to keep number games on Sony's consoles and use different names for those being developed on Sega and Nintendo. If you wish to learn more about the game's fascinating development, I encourage you to get a copy of Alex Aniel's book, Itchy, Tasty, An Unofficial Resident Evil History, that contains behind-the-scenes secrets and commentaries from the creators of the game themselves. Not only will you know everything about Code Veronica, but the entire RE franchise. The game is set on December 27th and 28th, 1998, 3 months after the events of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Following on from her experiences in Raccoon City, Claire went out in search for her brother. Believing him to be at Umbrella Europe's Paris laboratory, she infiltrated it in December, but things quickly went out of control.
Your identification number is WKD4496. Welcome to your new home.
Her name is Claire Redfield. We caught her trespassing in our Paris lab facility 10 days ago. She apparently infiltrated the complex looking for her lost brother, Chris Redfield, one of the surviving members of RPD's famous STARS teams. Don't move.
As you can see, the opening of Code Veronica is action-packed, but make no mistake, the gameplay remains solid, classic survival horror. In fact, the gameplay too feels more like a continuation of RE2 than RE3. The tank controls are back, and the game has retained RE3's quick turn mechanic, but has not selected the ability to dodge attacks. Meaning that when you are cornered by a swarm of creatures, you are cornered, and your only chance to get out of there is to open fire and pray that you saved enough ammo or accept to take damage in order to create an opening for you to escape. The game puts you in this kind of situation right from the start. You have to think fast and find the best option to escape the numerous zombies attacking you from all sides, while you only have a handful of ammunition and a knife. A tricky situation, not unlike the opening of RE2. The gameplay similarities with Resident Evil 2 don't stop there. You can no longer craft ammunition as you did in Resident Evil 3. Going up and down stairs puts you in a state of invulnerability for the duration of the animation, but the same doesn't apply to enemies. Speaking of enemies, their AI doesn't seem too different from the previous entries in the franchise, although I would say that they feel trickier to deal with at times, ambushing you from different directions instead of all just going forward to get you. But to be fair, this feeling is probably mainly due to the fact that the enemies are placed in such a way as to create this kind of situation, rather than to the fact that the AI has really progressed. But guess what? It doesn't matter. It works perfectly fine that way. The feeling of oppression and vulnerability are there, and that's what matters. I appreciate this kind of detail, which shows how imaginative developers were in circumventing the technical means of the time. Another new feature worth mentioning is the ability to use two weapons at the same time. This means you can aim and fire at two enemies simultaneously. This can come in handy when your back is against the wall against an army of undead. As you could see, the lighter is also now equipable to light up your path and complete puzzles. One of the reasons why I think Resident Evil Code Veronica is less appreciated than other games in the franchise is its difficulty. The game is extremely punishing. Forgetting to pick up an object that may seem insignificant at the start of the game can cripple you for the second half. Or worse still, mismanaging your inventory, ammunition, and healing items can make you start the game all over again from the beginning if you haven't saved your progress on a different slot. I fully understand the frustration that some players may have felt at finding themselves totally helpless in the face of a particularly grueling boss battle, with no choice but to restart the game, or at the very least have to go back to an old save game. It's all about learning and improving your run. So yes, your very first run is going to be tough, very tough, and I kind of like that, because as you progress, so is your understanding of the game. And when you eventually beat the game and play your second run, you'll realize that there are lots of things you could have done differently, things that would have made your progression easier. I like difficult games. I like that a game forces me to use my brain instead of just smashing buttons. I hate when a game takes me by the hand by showing me the path to an important key item. Looking at you, RE6.
Jesus. I'm alright. Let's just figure out a way to open it.
Look at that, a padlock key.
This should never happen again in a Resident Evil game, ever. The thing I really love about Resident Evil Code Veronica is its story. I'm genuinely surprised when I see people online or other RE content creators describe Code Veronica's story as silly or too cringe. Sure, some of the characters are annoying or off-putting. There are moments of over-the-top action, and I'm happy about that. And you know why? Because it's used effectively. I think the writing in this game is superior to anything we've seen before in the franchise. Different, deeper, more personal. Code Veronica's exploration of family ties is both charming and unsettling. On the one hand, we witness genuine moments of affection between Claire and Chris, finally reunited after months of anguish. How can you not be touched by the long-anticipated reunion between these two orphans? On the other hand, we have Steve, riddled with regret and resentment towards his own father, whose past mistakes led him to Rockfort Island and ultimately to the murder of his mother. Then we have the real stars of the show, Alexia and Alfred Ashford, twisted, highly intelligent twins with little or no regard for human life. They represent the opposite of what Claire and Chris stand for. Everything seems to oppose them. The Ashfords come from a powerful and noble lineage. The Redfields are commoners with no family. Yet they are the ones willing to risk everything for others, while those who have everything seek only to destroy and control what remains of the world. They also have a very complicated relationship with their father, going as far as to conduct horrible experiments on his body, finally turning him into the monster he represented for the deranged twins. I've always found the relationship between Alexia and her brother Alfred fascinating. We don't know exactly what's going on between them, except that Alfred has immense respect for his sister. He admires her, and I think it's fair to say he worships her as if she were a goddess. Alfred seems to be the only person in the world Alexia is capable of caring about. It's very clear. Alexia is the queen, and Alfred is her valet. Not her equal by any means, but still an important part of her court. We can even take this idea a step further. Alexia is the queen ant of the colony, an important symbol throughout the game, and Alfred, as much as Alexia likes him, is nothing more than a working ant. And you know what happens to an ant colony when the queen is gone? It perishes. Just as the military colony on Rockfort Island perished, just as Alfred's spirit perished. His world is nothing without Alexia. He exists only to take care of her. When Resident Evil Dark Side Chronicles came out on the Wii and revisited the events of Code Veronica, I hated how they butchered Alexia's dynamic with Alfred, going as far as making her kill her brother herself, and changing what was once a complex, even ambiguous relationship into a simplified "I love you, I don't care about you" kind of situation.
You two are brother and sister, aren't you? I had a brother once too. He really wasn't much fun. He couldn't even wake me up on time. But I've released him of all his responsibilities.
It was such a waste. And this is what truly happened.
I won't forget about this, Claire. Alexia! Alexia, you're finally awake. Alexia.
What is that?
Gosh, it was something else, wasn't it? That scene gives me chills every time I see it. Resident Evil Code Veronica is ridiculous. Nonsense! Of course, I wouldn't say it's a game free of cheesy lines, and some moments may have aged poorly. But that's just more reasons to remake this game, am I right? Sadly, these interesting details about Code Veronica tend to be overlooked. It's as if most people only retain Steve's clumsy attitude towards Claire or Alfred's cross-dressing issues without questioning the reasons for their behavior. And that's to me the biggest mistake to make when it comes to judging the game. Steve is a 17-year-old teenager who's been through some serious traumatic events. I expect him to be clumsy with the ladies. As for Alfred, the loneliness and the lack of purpose he felt when Alexia left him started to drive him mad and caused him to suffer from dissociative identity disorder and led him to cross-dress as a female he idolizes, which makes him the Norman Bates of Resident Evil, especially when you take into account his residence. I wouldn't go so far as to say that Code Veronica's story is perfect. It really isn't. Take Alexia, for example. She's grand, majestic, and charismatic. But why is she so evil? Why do the twins hate their father so much, if not because he's responsible for their artificial creation and their family's bad reputation? There's room for a story within a story there, if you ask me. And that's the kind of things I'd love to see more developed in a potential Code Veronica remake. The game is dark, and although it deals with serious topics such as mental health issues, parental abuse, or megalomania, it also marks the beginning of the end for some fans, a critical point. It's true that, after this game, the series moved more and more towards action rather than survival horror, but I don't think it would be fair to blame Code Veronica for that. Make no mistake, Resident Evil 4, as much as we love it, started the downfall of the franchise, until it was revitalized thanks to Resident Evil 7, but that's a subject for another video. Nevertheless, for some fans, the return of Albert Wesker, the charismatic villain from RE1, with superpowers felt somehow out of place. It was Wesker's first appearance since his presumed death during the mansion incident in the Arklay Mountains. And what an appearance it was. The dark clothes, the deep voice, the superhuman strength, the red glowing eyes. This is the moment Albert Wesker became, the Albert Wesker. It's also the moment that marks the rivalry between him and Chris, as important in the Resident Evil lore, a rivalry that will become central to the events of Resident Evil 5. The cinematics featuring Wesker offer a spectacle never before seen in Resident Evil, but the game remains a survival horror at all times. I remember feeling threatened by Wesker's menacing presence when he first met Claire on the island. I can't possibly make a love letter video to Code Veronica without speaking about the music it offers to our ears. At a time when I personally find music in video games much less memorable than it used to be, I can only sing the praises of the composers who brought us these incredible pieces. From the Ashford's lullaby that is sometimes touching, sometimes creepy, to the pulse-restoring save room theme, to the epic orchestrations that energize boss battles. Code Veronica has it all. These tunes resonate forever in my head. Just listen to this. Liked it? There's more of it where it came from. Speaking of great music, I'd like to take a moment here to thank Nos4A2 for his brilliant and atmospheric rendition of A Moment of Relief, Resident Evil Code Veronica's save room theme, that you had the pleasure of hearing at the beginning of this video. Thanks again. Although it's not one of the best-selling Resident Evil game, Code Veronica is still very present into the minds of the fans. A dedicated team of fans even went as far as to undertake the gargantuan task to remake the game themselves until Capcom eventually shut down the project. We all hope Capcom is going to remake this game themselves sooner or later. How about you? Are you excited by the idea of a potential Code Veronica remake? What are your expectations? I'm really keen to know what you think of this underrated game. Was it just released at the wrong time, when the classic Resident Evil formula was beginning to falter? Thank you for watching this video. I'm TheRedButterfly, and I do cover a lot of Resident Evil stuff on my channel. If you feel like supporting my content, please consider subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing this video. I would really appreciate your help, and I sincerely thank you if you already have. Until we meet again,